Hello and welcome to WhatKeepsYouAwake.tv. It's time again to dive into the hustles, the hurdles, and the highs that keep small business leaders up late at night. I'm your host, David Hooser, and I'm again fortunate to welcome back to our show, Chuck Moore. Chuck, welcome again.
Thanks, David.
And so this discussion, we had mentioned this in our early discussions. In your 12 years of operation, the one seemingly constant is your need to continuously raise funds.
Yeah, that is definitely that's the biggest issue that we face as a national drink company. Expanding into new markets, coming up with new products, bringing on sales staffs in each state. I mean, it's not cheap, and it all costs money. So we're continuing.
So how'd you get started? So let's just talk about the initial funding that you used to start the company.
Friends and family,
Okay.
draining my own bank account. That's kind of how you start. Is you reach out to them. Hey, listen, I have an idea. You reach out to your friends, your family, and I mean, they're for the most part. I mean, it's been fairly easy raising money, but now the kind of money we need is
you transition from those initial funding sources,
Yes,
which usually you can convince because you've been hanging out with them all your life,
Right.
one way or another. They raised you, or
Absolutely.
they're your friends. That's how you and I met, through a mutual friend.
Yep,
A long
absolutely.
time ago. But it's friends. We used to say friends, family, and fools. In that initial, early round of funding and securing the funding needs you have. How did you pivot from that, or have you pivoted fully into more institutional or next tier, sophisticated funding?
Yeah, so we're currently in a raise right now.
Okay.
We just found out that we'll be expanding into about 12,000 new stores in the next 6 months.
Okay.
So that's going to be quite a capital request. So we have
Can you give us a range of
what we're going to be raising?
what you're trying to raise?
Approximately $5 million is what we're going for.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Now, just real quick,
yes, sir.
contrast that to what you've raised up until this point.
Yeah, these were $200,000 raises.
Okay.
$500,000.
That could help you fine tune a specific product that
Absolutely.
you were doing, or packaging idea that you had, or
Marketing,
branding idea that you wanted to. So those pops would help you,
absolutely
implement that stage of expansion or growth that you have.
Yeah, I mean, most of it's going to be manufacturing to keep up with some of the C-store channels that we are being presented with right now. And I won't mention the conglomerate, but they have 4,000 to 5,000 different stores in 13 states that we're looking to take on, and that's going to be a lot of product that we have to produce and manufacture and distribute. Yeah. And then you have boots on the ground that
they
have to go out
probably
there
have minimum requirements before you can get the contract, but you have to show them you can generate X amount of product.
Absolutely. You have to have that. They want to make sure that you can produce that product before they give you that kind of commitment.
And will you, with the funding, will you be? Are you doing a traditional type raise, venture raise, or
some of it's going to be private equity, and some of it is actually crowdfunding.
Okay. You're
going
to try crowdfunding as well.
Yeah.
How much do you think you would raise through that channel?
So the crowdfund, we're hoping to raise at least $1 million on that.
Is that right?
And then that's going to be for Choco and Cerro.
And what does that give? What are you offering the crowdfunding?
It's very small pieces of equity, basically.
Okay, but it's equity.
It is equity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's WeFunder, if you're familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay. Not product.
No, I mean, well, some of it could be incentive. Product can be incentive. There could be different things that you incentivize the investor, but the goal is equity for them. Okay, so they have a piece of the company. And then you have thousands, of brand ambassadors that go out and speak about the product at that point. And so that's one way we're raising, but private equity is going to be the biggest vehicle for raise for us.
And how did you, you've developed a full, business plan based on the need for this capital.
Yep, that's
How
correct.
did you do that? Did you use a third party or did you guys build
We
it?
just took information as much as we can, and we do have, a few different third parties that are helping us with it. And, we don't know everything. So we have to reach out to the people that know more than us, which I think is a strong trait for an entrepreneur. And so we do have, a marketing plan in place. We do have a business plan in place. And I think the experience in the what the product's done thus far also helps. The track record.
It builds credibility.
It does.
With those.
It does. Especially with some of the retailers, the distributors. Again, we're with Anheuser-Busch and Molson Coors and some top tier distributors throughout the country. We're in top tier retailers like Bevmo, Go Puff, Liquor Barns, Total Wine & More's. So I think that gives us a little bit of credibility.
Absolutely. But it also, I think we discussed it in the last episode, but the learning experiences that you've had, the big setback on the mix or the production side of things that cost you. I mean, those kind of learning experiences help build that confidence that, you've seen what happens.
Yeah. I mean, there's not too much more you have to overcome than a major loss of product. So I think that shows grit and wherewithal for sure.
What other steps along the way, or what are the things you're finding as you go into more institutional private equity sources? What are you finding that you're needing to provide that maybe you hadn't provided before?
I mean, it's pretty basic from the time that we've raised money in the smaller friends and family, even into this. I mean, they're still going to need to see, the numbers that you've put up, again, the credentials of what you're doing, who you're playing with, the top tier
checks?
background checks. Yeah. I mean, it's, it gets a little more extensive.
So what you've said and you've done over the last 12 years matters, huh?
Yeah. 100%. You got to keep your nose clean. That's for sure.
At least as clean as possible.
Yeah.
Can't
Yes,
be
sir.
perfect.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any other words of wisdom, thoughts for the audience before we wrap up this?
It's, if you're planning to go into business, you have to develop some thick skin. No is always no unless you ask. That's my motto.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And I've lived by that. And then the great prophet Darcy, the wife, has said, just keep talking, never stop talking. And I've followed that advice, and it's gotten us this far.
All right. Let's talk about just briefly, because I've heard a lot of reports on how the 20-somethings of our country are drinking less and less.
That is a fact. It's a fact. Most beverage, wine, beer, and spirits are down, I believe, in the last year, 7%. The year before that was double digits.
So how is that impacting your fundraising efforts? How do you address that when you go into those?
Well, what's nice about what we have 3 different brands. We have RTDs that have that spirits in them, but they're a lower ABV. And those are still they're still scaling.
Okay.
Which is great. And then we went into the non-alc market, such as Elvado, where cannabis usage is up, alcohol is down. The younger generation is using cannabis and hemp more and not drinking as much.
Okay.
Because of a number of reasons. I think, number one, they don't like the hangovers. They don't like the health effects that they can get. The DUIs. Right. And, you don't function properly the next day if you just went out and got hammered.
So you're addressing 2 of those things: the alcohol content and the natural products.
Yes.
So your argument, as you go out and talk to these private equity groups, is you have a differentiation.
Yeah, and the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
So if you look at some of the different reports, I just read something just yesterday. Looks like 2024 netted around 275 million for THC, and they predict by 28 it could be 4.1 billion. So that's about a 20% growth year over year.
Beverages?
In just THC beverages.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You don't think about that as much as.
Yeah. You think about it when you have a company with
when you're in it.
Yeah, when you're in it.
Business.
When you're in the
I wouldn't think.
yeah.
I mean, you hear about the CBD, the oils and the drops that you can take to, sprinkle on your food or.
What I think is interesting is that kids are drinking less, but they're using cannabis, and they could be using edibles, they could be using flower. But I think when you bridge the gap, like what we're doing, is you're giving them an all natural cocktail. I mean, there's still some seltzers and cocktails in the THC beverage world at the moment that still have the red dyes and the blue dyes and synthetic sweeteners, if you will. But when you bridge that gap, you give them something that tastes really good and it's healthier, and it gives them the cannabis that they've gravitated to. I think that's where you're winning.
Now, is this in any of your products a carbonated type?
Yeah, product? They're all lightly carbonated. They're at about a 2.4, which is a low carbonation setting. But I mean, they're delicious. I mean, obviously, I'm going to say that. But
I was going to say you have a bit of a bias. I mean, that's okay. We've
entered every global award you can possibly imagine, and we bring home best in class and platinums,
and that speaks a lot to the equity, the fundraising efforts that and individuals that are looking at. So those things may seem trivial, but they really do matter. It helps your pride.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, it makes it'll let you know that you're on the right track at least, right?
But it also really helps secure that critical funding when you need it. Doing things like that matter. So spending that time, maybe that's some of the fundraising you did.
It's definitely a piece of the marketing for sure.
Yeah.
And then, coming up with new innovative flavors. We're coming out with something towards the end of the fall that has not been done yet in the THC realm. And so that's under tight wraps until we get that manufactured.
Right.
I'll bring it here.
I'll
bring it here.
All right.
Next time.
Deal.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, with that, let's remind the audience how they get a hold of you or your product.
Sure. So the websites are probably the best. Social media is very helpful as well. Choco Flaco is chocoflaco.com. Elvado is elevadodrinks.com. And then we have elcerodrinks.com. And then you can also get Elero on walmart.com underneath non-alc mocktails.
All right, that does it for us. And again, remember, if you like the show, go and subscribe to us, follow us on your favorite podcast source, whatkeepsyouawake.tv, and tell your fellow friends and entrepreneurs to check out an episode. And with that, we'll catch you next time.